Good evening, everybody. This is Betsy Wurzel, host of Chatting with Betsy on Passionate World Talk Radio. Jeanne White is the producer. This is Friday, February, what day is it? 21st. And I have a special show and a special guest. This is a different kind of show. I have a college student whose name is Maddisen Sharpe, and she's going to interview me for her college research. Hi, Maddisen. Thank you for coming on Chatting with Betsy.
Hey, Betsy. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome.
I just wanted to tell you a little bit about me before I go in and start actually interviewing you.
Sure.
I am a junior at Purdue studying user experience design, and I am looking into Alzheimer's with the caretakers and how to make it a better experience for them overall.
That is awesome. And I really hope more people your age get into learning about Alzheimer's and caregiving. I think that's wonderful. I really do, and I wish you all the best. And thank you for contacting me. And as my audience knows, I serve it straight up Jersey style. A little too much for some people, but that's okay. So go ahead. I'm ready.
Okay. So I've, again, looked through some of your podcasts, read some of on your website, and I know your husband, Matt, had Alzheimer's disease. Can you tell me how long you've actually were caring for him during the period?
Sure. I was caring for Matt for 10 years.
10 years. When did you actually learn that he had Alzheimer's, like diagnosed and everything?
Matt started going to a neurologist like in November, December 2009, and he was misdiagnosed very early in 2010. It was in May of 2010 that I put my foot down and told the doctor, call it what it is, that it was Alzheimer's.
They were skating around it.
Yeah, I only suspected it. Well, his MRI was abnormal, his EEG. Matt's family, his mother's side, had Alzheimer's, but Matt was the first one to get it young. So if it wasn't for his family history, I would have believed these ignorant doctors.
Yeah. Which it's crazy how sometimes when some families don't have any history of Alzheimer's and they still get it, while some you can kind of look out and watch for it. It's kind of crazy.
It is. And when I look back, Matt was actually showing little things probably 2 years before, definitely a year before, looking back in hindsight.
By that? Like, what kind of symptoms was he kind of showing?
I know this sounds crazy.
It's fine.
Excuse me. He was leaving drawers opened. He forgot where to put the recyclables. In New Jersey, we had to separate our recyclables. Mm-hmm. And he would throw it in the regular garbage. He was confused in going places that he normally went to, and he made, which as a lot of people do, make excuses. Oh, there's road construction. And there was. But it threw him off. It shouldn't throw you off that much. And I remember Matt lived in our town his whole life. He never moved out of the area. And they were making a left-hand lane on a major road. And it threw him off so much, he went all the way around, a longer way, to avoid that. And I said, Matt, all you do is go straight. They just made a left-hand lane. Why does that confuse you? And he was driving in between two lanes. Yeah, their vision. I mean, it's different with everyone, but Matt's visual was affected immediately.
Wow.
And his employer was noticing problems. At work.
You both noticed it differently. What did he do for work, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, no, I don't mind. He worked at shipping and receiving.
Okay.
That's what he did.
So that's a lot of visuals.
Yes. Matt's company was so wonderful. I really, have kudos to give to them because they could have fired Matt. He made major costly mistakes, and they suspected something was wrong. And because of HIPAA laws, they weren't allowed to tell me anything. So I didn't know what was going on at work, only what his coworker gave me little tidbits, but he wasn't allowed to tell me everything. So Matt's company let me sit in on his disability hearing because they knew he couldn't remember, but they had to get corporate permission because they never had this situation before. And, of course, they had to get permission from Matt. And Matt had talked to the company doctor. I don't know if he saw her or she just talked to him over the phone. And she was up in Connecticut, but she suspected dementia.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what was really strange because she suspected it without seeing any test. She was hoping it was the reversible kind, like if you had a thyroid problem or vitamin deficiency, but she felt that it wasn't. And I thought that was really amazing that the doctors down here in our area who saw abnormal test would not believe that he had dementia because we were told, you're too young. That's what we were told. And we were told that he was depressed. He went for neuropsychological testing, and the neuropsychologist accused Matt of being noncompliant and said he can't possibly be that bad. You have a deep psychological problem.
Oh, my God. That's so irritating.
Yeah, and I didn't know Maddisen 10 years ago what I know now, because if I did know 10 years ago what I know now, I would have told her off and reported her, because this is this is insane, and that's not the only one. I hear this a lot, where the tester is blaming the person coming to you for help with a problem. I mean, his reason why we went there was memory problems. Why would you not believe somebody? It doesn't make any sense.
That's so frustrating. And you had to deal with this from the very start all the way to the end, from what it sounds like.
Oh, yes. Yes. But my opinion, the medical community needs to be educated. It's just they don't know how to handle people that have dementia. They don't know how to, back 10 years ago, how to pick up on signs. Thankfully, about 2 or 3 years ago, Matt's primary doctor started pre-screening for Alzheimer's. And I told him, you know what, I wish you would have done this when Matt was starting, and maybe you would have believed us. And his response to me was, Betsy, at the end of the day, it wouldn't have made a difference because there wasn't anything I could do for Matthew, and I feel frustrated as a physician because I can't help him.
Yeah. I bet looking back at it now, he wished he could have done something more, like maybe caught it earlier, something. But then again.
Yeah, I mean, even his neurologist, said, oh, he's too, young for Alzheimer's, and we went to actually 2 other neurologists. We're told the same thing. And I said to, the neurologist, it was in May, I said, listen, Matt doesn't know how to tell time. He asked me what time Sunday school was that he taught for over 20 years. This is no longer depression. You know how to tell time when you're depressed. You know how to do your job. You may not feel like doing it, but you know how to. I said, he doesn't know what time it is. He can't read his watch to tell time. I said, call it what it is. It's Alzheimer's. His MRI showed global atrophy more than it should have been with non-specific white spots. And his EEG was abnormal, and it said suggestive of dementia. Now, what more do they need? They wouldn't do a PET scan, PET scan, because it's very expensive. And it is frustrating.
Yeah. You just telling it to me makes me frustrated.
Yes. And even not even near the end, at the end, Maddisen, these home hospice nurses need to be educated. I told the home hospice nurse, Matt was placed on hospice November 29th. He passed away January 1st this year. I said, Matt's at the end of life. No, he's not. I said, yes, he is. Oh, he's not at the end of life because he's walking and he's talking and he's eating. I said, if you consider someone hunched over, shuffling, and needs 2 people to help him being able to walk, okay then. I said, but he is eating baby food, and I'm telling you, he's at the end. He is seeing dead people. He is at the end. Even his neurologist said so back in May. I said, you need to think outside your textbook because not everybody fits a textbook picture.
Yeah, and they need to start looking at them as human beings because as a caregiver, you went through a lot with them, and you know who they were when they lit up before that. You dated them. You went through movies together, and seeing the light in their eye dim down as Alzheimer's continues on is heartbreaking. And then you have someone come to your house saying, oh, no, they're fine. And you're just like, no, I knew what he was like before. He's still the same person, but it's not the same.
Exactly. And I told a social worker that that came to my house and who tried to, in my opinion, try to intimidate me, asking me how I'm giving Matt his medications because I was calling hospice up day and night because my husband was severely agitated. And I said, I know how to give medication. I used to work as a nurse. I'm not stupid. Don't talk to me like I'm stupid. Oh, I'm not. But, most people don't call up hospice day and night. And I told her point blank, I said, listen, I am my husband's advocate, and I will call up day and night until there's a solution to his problem. And it was, unfortunately, I had a very bad home hospice experience. The hospital was much, much better, but they're supposed to offer comfort to the person with the dementia and the caregiver, the family members, and they caused me so much stress and aggravation that I'm traumatized from it, actually. Yeah. It was very traumatic. And I worked as a nurse, and I've seen it all. But when it's your loved one and they don't believe you that your loved one is severely agitated and hallucinating their rear end off. My husband even fell. Matt even fell, and they would not come out.
What?
They would not come out.
Did they give you a reason why they wouldn't come out?
They didn't come out. Nope. The on-call nurse that Friday night said to me, "Oh, I'll leave a note for the day nurse." Day nurse never called. Matt was agitated that Saturday. I believe he fell again, called up. I let them have it, and I threatened to change hospices, make calls. "Oh, don't do that." My married name is Sloan, Mrs. Sloan. Give him more Valium and don't give the Seroquel. Well, he hallucinated the whole Saturday night, fell out of bed Sunday morning. Oh, but that Saturday when I said I had called in the evening, the day nurse said, "Oh, yeah, that I was supposed to call you and come, but I was busy." And I was like, "Really, you were busy?" So I said, "Anyone coming out now?" No. And I had a fit that Sunday morning. It was the Sunday before Christmas. And I said, "Is someone coming out to assess my husband?" "Oh, I don't know." I said, "You don't know?" I said, "Let me tell you something. I'm going to call you up every single minute until something is done. And while I'm at it, I'm going to call up your regional director, and I'm calling Medicare. I'm going to file a complaint to their Levanta department against this hospice, and I want my husband changed." "Oh, don't do that, Mrs. Sloan. I'm going to call my nurse manager up right now." It took that much aggravation for them to get Matt up to the hospice unit, and they had the nerve to tell me when he was there for a day, "Oh, Betsy, now we see what you're talking about." I'm like, "What do you think? I'm making it up?" I know my husband. I was married for 39 years. I know my husband. And he was moaning in pain, and the social worker had the nerve to say to me, "Oh, Seroquel can cause headaches." Well, how do you know that's what he's moaning about? Was she a doctor? It was really very, very frustrating. And I mean, I don't know if you're aware of this, Maddisen, and this is a fact, that there is different protocol, a criteria for a cancer patient to be on hospice versus someone with dementia.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, different protocol and necessity, different things for each individual person. Because not all Alzheimer's patients have the same type. They don't do the same thing. They all have their own kind of like, I can't do this, I can't do that, I'm better at this. So each one's individually unique.
Exactly. And you know that, and you're a young person. I'm so proud of you. Yes, that's what she was trying to tell the home hospice nurse and the staff excuse me, in the hospice unit. A matter of fact, the hospital social worker, another one, had the nerve to call me. This is how ignorant they are and how they don't listen. She called me Christmas Eve day and said, "Matthew will be going home Thursday or Friday." And I said, "I don't think so." "So, yes, he'll be going home." I said, "I don't think so." I said, "He's so agitated on IV medication. How's he going to go home?" "Oh, well, Mrs. Sloan, don't panic. We're going to get him off of the IV meds and on medicine by mouth, and we'll monitor him, and then he can be discharged." I said, "Let me tell you something. You let me know when he's on the PO meds. I'll go down there, monitor him myself, and I'll let you know if I'll accept his discharge, because I will refuse it, and I will file a complaint." And she said, "Oh, calm down, Mrs. Sloan. He's not getting discharged yet." I went into the director of hospice, and I said, "Let me tell you something. If my husband is discharged," and that's the if, because I don't think he's getting out of here alive, "I want a care plan. and I want it in writing. And I said, and so help me, if I need a nurse out to assess him in an emergency and one doesn't come, I'm calling up the CEO at this hospital. And don't think I won't do it, because I will. And she said to me, Mrs. Sloan, calm down. Here's my card. Call me if a nurse doesn't come out. Call me 24/7. And she had a nerve to say to me, why didn't you call me before? I said, your name's not in the handbook. Your regional director is. And I was going to call her that Sunday. Believe me, I would have. I said, you know what? You don't know who you're dealing with. I'm not no quiet little housewife. I'm an advocate. And I will advocate for my husband with every breath I have. And Matt's doctor, his primary doctor, he even said to me, Betsy, I know you're an advocate. I've seen you. He said, I know you are. So, I always encourage, I have a group on Facebook, and I encourage caregivers, you have to speak up. When you see an injustice, you must speak up. You have to.
And especially if it's for someone you love or even someone you don't know. But if you see something happening, you have to say something.
Yes. Oh, definitely. And they knew, that I was definitely going to say something. I think they were afraid of me after a while.
They're like, oh, she's coming.
Yeah, because when I went to talk to a director of hospice, first I talked to her on the phone, and she said she wanted to meet me. So I went into her office, and I told her what happened. She goes, oh, this is son, I'm so sorry. This usually doesn't happen, and someone dropped the ball. I said, do you think? Oh, we have to see who it is. I named names. And I said, I'll tell you who dropped the ball. I said, you would not accept this if this was your loved one. I know you wouldn't, because I know how nurses are, because I was one. Not anyone on this floor or works in this hospital would accept this kind of treatment. And why should I? Because I'm not going to. I said, this was totally unacceptable. And I don't want this happening to somebody else. And the nurse who did drop the ball came into my room to meet me. I guess she wanted to see who the big mouth was. So because I'm 5 foot, Maddisen, 110 pounds on a little Spitfire. So don't push my buttons, especially when it comes to my loved ones. And I told her, I'm a mama bear. My claws will come out. You do not want to, deal with me. I mean, I'm the kind of person you want to look out for you if you're in a nursing home or a hospital, or if you're sick. I am not the person you want to deal with if you cross me or you cross my loved ones or do them wrong, because I'm going to, just jump on the situation.
Which is exactly what loved ones want when they're sick. They don't want to have to deal with that.
Right.
So,
and, I wasn't offered comfort. So I told him I wasn't offered comfort at all. Or my husband was not comfortable.
Yeah. It's what they're there for, is for comfort and making sure they get better and just making them.
Right.
Yeah. Oh. So during that first phase when you found out he had Alzheimer's, did you actually have another job, or was your soul caring for him and stuff like that?
I still worked. I was very fortunate that I was able to work outside the home. Our son lives with us. So if it wasn't for my son Joshua, I would not have been able to work, because Josh works as a bus aide and he was home in between. And, we were lucky that Matt was able to be left alone until right before he went on hospice.
Yeah, and that way he got to be around family also.
Right. I was very fortunate that Matt, progressed slowly until the past 2 years, but definitely the past, 2019.
Yeah, that's, you get what you get. So for the time you have with them, you try to enjoy it as much as you can because, yeah, it's just a sad situation.
Yes.
So when you found out that he had Alzheimer's, how much information did you know beforehand, and how much did you start, looking up to try and figure out what it actually was? Because none of the doctors really wanted to say he had Alzheimer's.
I didn't know that there was such a thing as early onset before the age of 65. I never heard of that before. I knew about Alzheimer's because I took care of Matt's mom, who also had Alzheimer's, and I lived with her, took care of her for 5 years. When my mother-in-law had Alzheimer's, I didn't know anything. So I say she took me to Alzheimer's school. And there wasn't the information back then. Yeah, see, there was not the information highway back then. So this is a learn-as-you-go disease, and everyone is different. So I was able to handle some things better, but I didn't know everything. I didn't know that your vision was affected, and that's why Matt couldn't see things right in front of him. And that's why he was driving between 2 lanes, and I had to take his keys away because he couldn't drive anymore. Yeah. And I didn't know that, their depth perception is off, and when someone, looks normal, you expect them to behave normally. And I could see that he couldn't even put a roll of toilet paper back on. He couldn't do it. He tried, but he couldn't do it. And it was very heartbreaking as you see them, your loved one, lose their skills. And it's a grieving process throughout the whole journey. With each skill lost, you grieve.
How did you deal with this grieving? Did you talk to your son about it? Did you reach out to people on Facebook? As you saw it slowly happen with you having to take away his car keys, to you having to, not, take the toilet paper off of a table near you. How did you deal with that?
I didn't deal with it very well. I didn't get on Facebook until 2014. And by that point, between my mother-in-law, I didn't live with my dad. My dad had dementia. And then Matt, I was dealing with this for 14 years without any support. And I went crazy joining Facebook groups, Alzheimer's groups. And I almost had a nervous breakdown 4 or 5 years ago because I thought I had to be the super person, that I had to take it all in and do everything and be perfect. And I went for counseling. And people at work, my boss was noticing I was snapping at the children. I work in a preschool. And she cut my hours down. And she told me, Betsy, you need to get a grip. Really, she said, you need to have some time for yourself. I'm cutting your hours down. This is too much for you. And she was right. I was going to give up some hours. And I went for therapy, counseling, and it was the best thing I ever did because I learned that it's okay not to be perfect. It's okay, I might get emotional, to cry. It's not weakness. And one of the worst things people tell caregivers is to be strong. And I feel this way, Maddisen. You are strong when you're a caregiver. You have to be strong. It's not for the faint of heart. And to tell someone to be strong is a tremendous amount of pressure. And unless you walk in a person's shoes, you don't know what their journey is like. And I encourage the people in my group, you know what? It's okay to cry. You do not have to be strong. You are strong, but it's okay not to be strong all the time. And my counselor said to me, Betsy, it's okay to have a pity party. Set your timer, 5, 10, 15 minutes, pack it along and move along. Best advice I ever got. And, you know, it's true. We need to validate our feelings and not be judged by people. I think that's the thing that caregivers actually go underground in private Facebook groups because they are afraid of being judged if they say caregiving stinks. You're judged by people. Oh, how dare you say that?
That that society, they think they're going to be viewed by society one way if they show weakness saying that they have someone with Alzheimer's, which is not true because we're all humans. We all have emotions. And what people, caregivers, loved ones, children are going through with loved ones who have Alzheimer's is incredible because they have to go through so much emotions and have to take all that and compact it, and then sometimes they can't even express it. And like how you said, you didn't start getting into Facebook groups and stuff like that, so all that's pent-up emotion. And at some point it comes to a breaking. And that's what I really want to look into is how do I give information to the caretaker group before it comes to that breaking point, so we don't have everyone hitting that point and realizing everyone's humans. So.
Yes. Actually, my neurologist, we have a different one. His wife is a psychologist, and he told me that his wife now focuses on the caregivers and giving them information on how to survive this. And I thought that was great because it's finally starting to sink in. Caregivers need help. Caregivers need information. And I think every person who is considering being a caregiver should take a caregiving course to make sure this is what you want to do, because a lot of people don't realize what it is all about. I mean, I worked as a licensed practical nurse, and I had not a clue about Alzheimer's because it wasn't taught, and it wasn't called Alzheimer's back then, and I had no clue of what it was like to be a 24/7 caregiver. And I have a medical background.
Do you want to talk about what it was like being a 24/7 caregiver? Sorry.
That's okay. It's very, very difficult. You, as a caregiver, are under tremendous stress, lack of sleep, and this is why I have to tell people, and I even have to tell myself, you have to do self-care. It's literally a matter of life and death, because stress will kill you. And to make it through this journey, it is imperative to do as much self-care as you can. And caregivers are riddled with guilt if they take time for themselves. I know I was. But you have to recharge your batteries because your loved one picks up on your energy. And if you are anxious, they're going to be anxious. And, we don't want that. And I'm very fortunate that I made it through this journey with my sanity intact and my health basically intact. I am very thankful for that. Because if a person wants to enjoy life after caregiving, You have to do this. You have to take care of yourself. And I know it's difficult. It's very hard. My mom used to say to me, Betsy, practice what you preach. Excuse me. And I know, especially near the end, it's not easy to do self-care. It's not easy to take time to go to the doctors or take time for yourself. It's not. And it really, after your loved one passes, I mean, it's different for everybody, but you're in such an adrenaline rush and your cortisol levels are just through the roof that when you start to decompress, your body feels like it's been hit by a Mack truck and you're exhausted. I'm still exhausted. And I'm concentrating on myself now, but it's a tough road. It really is. I don't sugarcoat. People that know me know I don't sugarcoat. Caregiving is tough.
Yeah.
It is very tough. It's harder than any nursing job I ever had.
Wow, that's a lot. The stress behind it. I'm from an outsider point of view, I could probably not do it. It takes a very wonderful person to do that. So I give kudos to you and everyone else.
Thank you. Thank you. I know I could never do this again. They say never, but I don't think I could do it again. It's just too much. My son was 15 when we moved in with my mother-in-law. He's now 35. So he's been dealing with this also 20 years for 3 different people. And it took a toll on him. And I have a saying, Maddisen, that children are the hidden casualties on the war of Alzheimer's and other dementias. And I honestly don't know how people do it who have very young children. My heart goes out to them because they need to do a study on how this affects children, especially young children whose brains are still growing, to see their parent, grandparent be, hallucinate and get angry and do things that they normally don't do. It was really hard for my son. My son helped take care of his dad, and my son has special needs. He's on the autistic spectrum, yet he understood Alzheimer's better than so-called intelligent people. He changed his dad. He helped feed his dad, and he was wonderful with him. And we can teach our children compassion and empathy, dealing with their loved one who has dementia, or they can, see how their adults act around the loved one who has dementia, whether people are compassionate or not. It's a lesson that we could teach our children.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. So with everything you know now, if you were to go back in time, is there some information you would love to pass on to be like, hey, look for this, or even for your self-care? Is there something you would want to tell your past self?
Yes, I tell this to my group. Excuse me. Listen to your gut instinct. If something is not right and the doctors tell you, you're imagining it or everything's fine, seek other opinions until you get peace about it. Learn, educate yourself as much as you can about Alzheimer's, whatever dementia your loved one has, because they're all different. Learn about hallucinations, learn about sundowning, so you can prepare yourself. Although I know living with it, seeing it, and reading about it, that's 2 different things. At least you'll be prepared. I was better prepared with Matt, with his hallucinations and sundowning, than I was with my mother-in-law because I didn't know anything about hallucinations. Yeah. And I would yell at her and argue back with her instead of just going with it. But with Matt, it was much different. I handled it much better. So education is definitely highly recommended. Excuse me.
So
and also,
question is, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, also when you get your financial things situated, go to a lawyer immediately, get your power of attorney, living will, and I thought I had a will. I thought Matt made out a will, but he didn't. Have a will made out for both of you, because if you ever have a problem, like I'm filed a complaint with Levanta, I will not know the outcome of that investigation because Matt didn't have a will. And I did not know that until recently. So get wills made out.
So what happens if he doesn't have a will? Does it go to the state? Or?
Well, in New Jersey, I really didn't have to probate anything because he didn't have anything. But if you have property in your name, your spouse's name, and you don't have a will, I think it goes in New Jersey. It goes to a probate.
Okay.
Yeah, but I didn't have any. Matt didn't have anything, so I even called up the lawyer's office and I said, "Does Matt have a will?" And they said, "No, he never made one out." And I was stunned, and I said, "I could have sworn he made out a will," but they said no because he didn't have any assets. Well, how was I supposed to know you should have one anyway in case there's a problem? And you have to do an investigation.
Oh, my gosh. Just another thing to add on top.
Yeah, so make out a will anyway, even if they don't have assets.
So when you did have questions, whether it be with your mother-in-law or with Matt, where did you go for these questions other than education? Did you reach out to the doctors? Where did you get your answers for these questions?
The doctors were basically useless because they didn't have information. I did contact the Alzheimer's Association with my mother-in-law and with Matt. And I did not have a smartphone when Matt was diagnosed. I had a smartphone. Well, I got on Facebook 6 years ago, and that's when I had gotten better information from Facebook groups and other caregivers. It's caregivers that are helping other caregivers and not the doctors, in my experience. It's the caregivers helping each other.
Also, how much did your family actually talk about Alzheimer's? Was it something that was openly talked about, or was it more a don't talk it to other people when we're inside the house kind of thing?
I talked about it. Matt, my husband, didn't want to talk about what he was going through, except he would say he hates it and it sucks. But he wanted to talk about what he was experiencing. My son and I talked about it, and I started to, when I brought a smartphone, I started going into my car and raising awareness. I was doing videos to raise awareness on early onset and saying, it's not your 70 or 80-year-old. This is what Alzheimer's looks like. And I'd show a picture of my husband. And I would start doing videos with my son Josh and with Matt and posting it on Facebook and saying, this is how we kick Alzheimer's, but we go out and have fun. We still live life, and we laugh. And actually, I started my own group on Facebook last year called #Kick Alzheimer's Ass Movement, because I was in a dark place, and I said either it's going to kick my rear end or I'm going to kick its rear end, and I decided I'm going to kick Alzheimer's rear end. by raising awareness, telling people about this disease, trying to educate the public, showing Matt's journey. I showed Matt's journey right till his dying day. I was not ashamed. And caregivers need to start showing their journeys and start putting a face to the disease so people can see it and see the good, the bad, and the ugly of this disease.
So when you found out he had the diagnosis and all that, what was the most difficult thing with coping-wise, or even like information or mental health?
I was just worried about how I was going to handle each stage when he was going to die. And I wished I didn't worry about that and just lived in the moment. And that's why I tell others about my experience so they don't make the same mistakes that I made, because you will handle it the best that you can. And there's no such person as a perfect caregiver. You do the best that you can. And don't second-guess yourself. And try not to feel guilty about things you have no control over. And please do not promise your loved one you will not place them, because you don't have a crystal ball. I was lucky I didn't have to place Matt. But there are situations where people do have to place their loved ones, and then they feel guilty because they think they broke their promise and they think they failed. And they didn't fail. This disease is out of our control.
Yeah. So I just have two more questions for you. So
sure.
What aspects of the caregiving do you wish could be improved over the entire journey, whether it was with hospice care, again, with all everything that happened with that, to the very beginning?
Could you repeat that? What would I do at the cost?
What do you wish could be improved overall?
Oh, improved. I would say help from the medical community and the government. We need more funds. We need more grants to hire respite, to get help. I think the criteria for a hospice for an Alzheimer's or other dementia needs to change. I think a person with dementia should be able to say more than 6 words and still qualify for hospice.
Yeah.
And the medical community needs to wake up big time and get themselves educated, because the baby boomers are going to get slammed with this.
Yeah.
And they're not ready. Medicare isn't ready as far as that supplying hospice. Medicaid is not ready to handle all the people that will be needing Medicaid to get into a nursing home. And the caregiver needs help. And you shouldn't have to go bankrupt to get help.
I 100% agree. America needs to realize that with some of these diseases, they cost a lot of money, and we should not make the people who are still going to be alive after we pass go bankrupt and end up in financial debt. It's kind of ridiculous.
Yes.
Another thing is, what is the most rewarding part of caring for someone?
It's a blessing to be able to take care of your loved one and be there for them and show them that you love them. I might start crying. I loved Matt right up to heaven's door. I was there when he took his last breath, and he knew that we loved him all the way to his last breath. And that's what was the most rewarding, was to be able to let them know and that they are loved and they are valued, because they do feel like they're not worthy to be loved, or they feel useless, and they feel bad about themselves because they can't do things. And as a caregiver, and I know I'm guilty of this myself, we say, oh, well, you used to be able to do that, or why can't you do that now, especially in the early stages. They don't need to be reminded that they can't do stuff. They know. And they wish that they could do it. But just to show your loved one unconditional love was the blessing. To be there, loving Matt till his last breath. He knew he was loved.
That's the best way to go out, is knowing you are loved. So
yes.
To end this off, will you tell me your favorite memory with Matt?
Wow, there's so many. There was a memory that just came up where he was dancing in J.C. Penney, and Matt didn't even like to dance, but when you have dementia, your filters are off and your inhibitions, so he was dancing. And when I would say to him, who loves you, baby? And he didn't call me Betsy anymore, he called me Booby. And he would say, Booby. And that was really precious to me.
That is so sweet. I love this.
Yeah, we have a lot of, precious memories. There's, it's a mixed bag of emotion. And I would suggest, do voice clips, caregivers, do videos of your loved ones, and so that you will have it, and then you can hear their voice when they're gone. And it might bring you comfort. I mean, it may not, but it might. And you could go back and look at the good times.
So any additional questions, comments, or concerns? And that's all my questions.
Well, thank you, Maddisen, for coming on the show. It's a different type of show. I appreciate you contacting me and coming on the show. I, tell caregivers, you're doing your best, and just pat yourself on the back. And if you are a past caregiver, you did your best. Pat yourself on the back and just, shine your light. I have my own support group that people can join. We welcome all dementias. It's #Kick Alzheimer's Ass Movement on Facebook, and they can join. And Maddisen, do you have any information, like if people want you to interview them, how they could get in touch with you?
Oh, yeah. You guys can email me at my email, which is Sharpe, SHARPE, 1212 at purdue.edu. So PURDUE.edu. So I would love to talk to anyone. I really want to make a difference, and I know this is a very difficult disease for both the loved one and the caregiver. So anything I can listen to, because I really want to help the user and I want to hear their voices.
That is terrific. You know what, Maddisen? When I shut the recording off, stay on the phone, because I want to talk to you afterwards.
Okay.
Because I'm going to wrap up, and then I'm going to shut the recording off. But I do want to talk to you. So don't hang up when you hear the recording go off.
Okay.
This is Betsy Wurzel, host of Chatting with Betsy on Passion World Talk Radio. Please share this audio cast. Please read the blogs that Jeanne White writes. She writes beautiful blogs. You can follow me on my own personal page, Betsy, B-E-T-S-Y, Wurzel, W-U-R-Z-E-L, and you can see the journey that I had with Matt. And just shine your light, folks, and have a great evening. And thanks for joining us, and be talking to you listeners soon. Bye-bye.